Okay. Good evening, everybody. Hello. Welcome. Welcome to Le Cordon Bleu. For anybody that's there, I know some people have already been, and some have come from years of having worked here previously. We are delighted that you've come to join us this evening for the launch of our English version of the confectionery book. I'm going to hand over in a few seconds to our lovely publisher, who has brought this wonderful book to the market here in the UK. And then we will be following by a demonstration by our head of Pâtisserie Chef, Julie Walsh, who is very experienced, has worked here many years, and very, very professional in her area of expertise. So let me hand it over to Anne, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. There will be some samples for you to try this evening as well.
Thank you, Alex. Hello, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'd just like to tell you a little bit about Grub Street Publishing and a bit about the Le Cordon Bleu books that we publish. Grub Street publishes cookbooks. Well, actually, that's not the whole story. We publish cookery and military aviation history, which causes much amusement and fascination to a lot of people. But we'll just talk about the cookery this evening, and we'll leave the planes for another day. Grub Street has been in business since the 1980s. We publish new books every year, obviously, but we also specialize in doing hardback editions of cookery book classics like Elizabeth David and Jane Grigson. And we've specialized in recent years in doing translations of a lot of Michelin-starred chefs, translating them from their original languages from Spanish or French into English. And this is what led us a number of years ago to Le Cordon Bleu books, because in case you don't know, all the Cordon Bleu books are published originally in French. So we managed to acquire the English language rights to the first book that we did, which was back in 2018, which was Le Cordon Bleu Pastry School. We followed that in 2019 with Le Cordon Bleu Chocolate Bible, and then Le Cordon Bleu Bakery School. Confectionery is our fourth title that we're delighted to be publishing as under the Cordon Bleu imprimatur. Now, obviously, books of this length are incredibly work heavy to translate. We're talking thousands of words to translate. And we're very fortunate that we work very closely with Le Cordon Bleu in Paris, who oversee our translations, who advise us, who guide us, and who make sure that the English version is the best it can possibly be. And as I said, that is quite a lot of work, and it takes many, many months for them to come to fruition. Confectionery is really something quite different, I think. What we love about all the Cordon Bleu books is their attention to detail, not least of which obviously the quality of the recipes, because they are created by the chefs, all highly, qualified chefs from the Cordon Bleu schools. But the difference about them, I think, in the marketplace these days are the photographic step-by-step guides, which take you through the techniques of some of the most complex things in bakery, pastry, and confectionery making. And that really does make them stand out and make them quite unique. So I hope this evening, after we've had our demonstration and you've got a chance to look at the books, you'll have a look to appreciate the quality of the books that in detail, and the recipes and the step-by-step guides. Now, the great thing about confectionery, which I think is a bit quirky because it's a bit different to the others, I can't think of another volume that's got so many recipes together in one volume of all those things that people all say are naughty but nice. And of course, the thing is, they're not really naughty but nice. But the great thing about the recipes in confectionery is that if you're making sweet treats from scratch, you can control the quality of the ingredients in them, which means they're the best they can possibly be. And I think you'll find some wonderful recipes in the confectionery book. There's marshmallows, there's caramels, there's truffles, there's even, you know, candy canes, those things that you always see on American movies where they hang them on their Christmas trees. So there's a whole range of incredible recipes, not least of which, of course, is the Easter egg that Julie is going to make tonight. So I just leaves me to say thank you to Lila and her team who've organised this evening and who have put on and organised this demonstration. Also a big thank you to Susie Fox of Soundfire Communications, who've worked very, very hard in helping us all publicise the book. So now I will just hand over. Thank you.
So thank you, Anne. That's a nice introduction to the book itself. The book is available for purchase should you wish to buy it downstairs at the reception on the way out. You can have a look at a copy here later as well. And without further ado, let's hand it over to Julie for the demonstration itself. Have a lovely evening. Thank you, Julie.
Well, good evening, everyone.
Sure, Omar deliberately didn't give me one that worked. Leave it alone, it's a fire extinguisher. I'm sure Omar thinks I've got a big enough mouth, I don't need a microphone. But anyway, for those at the back, just in case you can't hear me, welcome. We're very excited to be launching the English edition of the confectionery book today. We have had lots of long conversations about confectionery over the last 2 or 3 years. Many bounce between Paris and London because there are some, you know, language changes, the way people understand the word confectionery and what that means. I remember us having a very deep conversation about pastillage and whether that was a confectionery item or whether it wasn't. I remember also us quite a long discussion about what we should include. The issue is that confectionery is so wide, the topic itself is that it's really hard to narrow down your favourites. Within the book, they're very cleverly defined the chapters. So we have some very traditional confectionery items. We have some more modern confectionery items. We have items which are looking at modern trends, so plant-based, you know, gluten-free, etc. So they're in the book as well. The most important thing, I guess, to understand about confectionery is generally there are 2 branches of it. So we have our chocolate confectionery, which would include things like bonbons, all of your lovely chocolate coated items like candied oranges coated in dark chocolate. And then we have our sugar confectionery. And sugar confectionery is a huge subject. And it goes right into the decorative medium. So what I've tried to do is to pick something that's in between. It's not easy. There's not many things in there that kind of fall in both realms. But we wanted to do something that showed very creative outlets, but also covered both areas. So what we've done is we've taken the premise from the book of the egg that they showed in the book. And that is a combination of a poppy seed, sesame seed, nougatine, and that's 1/2. And the other half is a chocolate shell. Now, generally, it's not frowned upon, but it's quite challenging to put 2 together like that because sugar work doesn't like moisture. Okay, sugar work does not like to be chilled, it likes to be out in the air or in an airtight container. It starts to melt very for those of you who've done sugar work before. Whereas chocolate is the opposite, almost the opposite. Okay, it can withstand thermal shock from going in the fridge. It's quite good at being left at room temperature if it's handled properly. And it is. Okay, so if your chocolate is properly handled, it will withstand temperatures like this. It's warm in here today. I could put that not directly in my shop window, but I could put it in a shop window and I would expect it to hold up. And that's because we've applied a process called tempering. And within the book, there's a whole chapter on tempering. So tempering basically is, if you've ever had, I'm not going to ever admit to doing this, but if anybody has ever put a Mars bar in their car, gone off to work, come back and gone, oh, I'm going to have that Mars bar, and then unwrapped it and it's got that horrible grey film, how many people are going to admit they've done that? Go on, I won't tell. It's not filmed. Okay. That happens when your temper is lost in the chocolate. Okay, the temper is a process we apply to the cocoa butter part of chocolate, and cocoa butter is a crystalline product. Okay, so it's a bit like steel, and it needs to have certain temperature ranges applied at certain times to enable us to hold all the crystals in a correct order. So everything is held together. There's no separation of the crystals. We don't have fat leaking out of it. We don't have sugar crystals forming, and it gives us that lovely snap that we all know from good quality chocolate. So tempering in the book is really well explained. Okay, there's lots of different ways of tempering. I've used at least 5 different ways. Okay, and they cover them in the book. The method I like to use, and we use here at the school, is the bain-marie or water bath method. Okay, now every method of tempering chocolate does the same thing. Okay, so you start, open our bag of chocolate. We have pieces of chocolate which are either a bar or a droplet. Okay, and if it's a bar, you have to chop it. And at that stage, it's tempered. Because if it wasn't, you'd open the bag and go, ugh, don't want that. Okay, so it is tempered. That's the manufacturing process. And that's great. If you want to stick chocolate bars on something, fab, it works. If you want to put chocolate droplets on everything, great, it works. But the minute you melt it, those cocoa butter crystals become free roaming. Okay, they lose contact with each other, so they're moving around, and you have no control over how they're going to set. So, for example, if I were to melt my chocolate, let's say there were 3 of us up here all melting a bowl of chocolate each. We pour it onto a tray and we go home for the night. Tomorrow, I'm going to come back and my chocolate will have set, but when I rub it with my fingers, it's greasy. It feels kind of like pulpy almost. Person next to me, they could have these lovely rivers in theirs. Some bits are dull, some bits are shining. Okay, that's because the cocoa roaming and it's lifted to the surface, but it's not mixed through. And then the person on the end, they could be really lucky, and theirs will have set dull, and it would look like a science experiment. They'd have little spores of sugar that have risen to the surface. Hiya. So the tempering process helps them do is to cool the mixture rapidly by stirring. So you're mixing those crystals all the time, and then you're rewarming it so you can work with it. Now, how you do that is up to you. There's loads of ways of doing it. For me, this is probably one of the I'm sure, and you will see in the book, there's other ways of doing it. If you have a lovely marble slab, you can pour some of the chocolate onto the marble slab. You can slather it around, scrape it up again until it starts to become thickened, and then put that back into the bowl, and that drops your temperature. But basically what you're doing is you're heating, dropping temperature, and rewarming to make it usable, if you like. So in our chocolate today, we're starting off. It's lovely, it's like Willy Wonka up here. Okay, and it's about 50 degrees, so it's 45 to 50 degrees. I'm going to cool that by using an ice water bath. So I'm going to take some water, put some ice cubes in it. I've got my bigger bowl. Just check that will fit. Perfect. Okay, and adding a little bit of ice water just speeds the process up. So if I were going to do this by pouring it onto the table, I would obviously have to be careful because the temperature is quite warm today. The table actually is affected by the air temperature. So we're just going to add a little ice cubes, a little handful. That's enough. Don't go crazy. And then we're going to start our cooling process. So as this is cooling, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we're going to do for the rest of the night, because this is going to take me 5 minutes. Okay, so with our tempered chocolate, I'm going to show you how to mold. And this is, again, it's covered in the book. But with our chocolate, there's lots of things we can do. So once it's in temper, primary purpose of tempering is to make sure it sets in this nice crystalline fashion. Okay, if it's set properly, it will be nice and shiny, it will have no streaks, and it will have a snap when you break it. It also means it's not porous. So if I put a filling inside, it's airtight. I don't have to worry about spoilage, about bacterial growth. I mean, to be fair, the bacterial growth is mainly to do with how much water is in the filling, more than anything else, but it is a sealed encasement, if you like. So I'm going on and off the ice bath until my temperature drops. And you can use your eye to tell when it's cold enough. You can use one of these. You can use a probe. They all work. But what we're basically doing is dropping this down to about 27 degrees. Now, all chocolate houses, all chocolate manufacturers will have a different set of temperature scales. If you look on the back of the bag, I've put Calabo. We've used Calabo at school for a while. We use that for our basic level and our intermediate level because it's very user-friendly. We don't like setting up our students to fail. On superior, we move on to the more complicated chocolates from Valrhona. And they are, I'm not saying they're better quality, but they have more nuances in the flavour profiles than these two, which are the two we use most often. The tempering is the same. So we're cooling it. So sometimes if we're using a 70% chocolate, the cooling maybe instead of 27 will be 28. If it's a Valrhona, just ask you to go down to 29 rather than 27. So you just need to check the packaging more than anything else. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for this to start to thicken. I need to avoid making lumps, so I don't leave it in there too long. Otherwise, I'm going to have little chocolate icebergs. And every one of those methods that we spoke about of cooling has pros and cons. So I'm a great one for the path of least resistance. Okay, I don't like washing up. This doesn't involve a lot of washing up. I like the students to have at least a half chance of getting it right the first time. And as long as you're careful with the water, this tends to work, okay? As we said, the other ways of cooling this is that we could pour 1/3 of the chocolate onto our table, slather it about, cool it down, goes back in. Another way is called seeding, which is where we put chopped chocolate into the hot chocolate to cool it down. Okay, and there's another method in the book that talks about a product called micrio or micrio, depending on where you're from in the world. And that's an isolated cocoa butter crystal. It's very expensive, and you're adding it into an expensive product already. So, yeah, if I knew what I was doing, I might use that because it's quick. But for beginners, it's very expensive to make a mistake. So there's lots of different ways. So physically, what I'm looking for, I can feel this becoming more viscous. I can hear it slapping. I can't make it loud enough so you can all hear it, I'm afraid. But you can hear it because it's becoming more viscous. Probably about 20, a little bit high still, 30. That's it. Got 3 degrees to go, and then we're good. Okay, so the most important thing, we want to make sure we've got our warm water bath on, because once this gets down to 27, at 25, we start to find solidified crystals in here, and that causes us a problem. So we want to make sure we're not getting too cold too quickly. Stirring, there's no substitute. Okay? You have to stir it. We're trying to move those cocoa butter crystals around as much as we can. And I can see, as you start seeing this become thicker, it becomes almost like a ribbon stage. We call ribbon stage for a lot of things when we whisk them. But it leaves a trail from the spatula. I'm not far off. Probe, because sometimes if I don't have, I'll just do it by eye. And I'm looking for long, tubular air pockets. Okay, so that's telling me becoming thicker. And I'm going to be quite close to my temperature. It's about 28, I think. And if you can see that, it's 28. 20. One more, just to be nice. Just turn that down. So as we said, pros. The worst thing is the chocolate, and it becomes. Okay. Therefore, you're getting an. Just because it measures surface temperature. That's fine. So we're on 27, which is good. I can see those long tubular bubbles. Just see that forming. Just to make sure everything's mixed through, there's no pockets of cold. Huh? Hang on. Stirring. So I'm sure my crystals are even. Check your temperature, it's not too hot. And we're going up. Just go wrong is they go too long on the heat and then don't stir it. Okay, a little, still too. Yeah, 29. I didn't put it on the hot one, on the medium one. So this is definitely not the time to be interrupted in the middle of tempering, because you turn your back and the whole thing's set in the pot. Then you won't be very popular. There we are. So we're up to 30. And because it's warm in here tonight, I think I'm going to stop there. It's quite warm. Do a little test. So keep it off the table so it's not getting too cold. Just going to change my water. Use that to keep it off the chilled surface. Just want to make sure that's really scraped down so nothing's going to set on the edges. Okay, so let's give it a minute or two. You're on. I need some. White chocolate now. Then comes out later if you need it. If you are doing white chocolate, the temperature ranges are just 1 or 2 degrees less. It's about 2 degrees, okay? With white chocolate, heat is very sensitive to heat. So a little bit too cold is fine, a little bit too hot, not good. Okay? And when you're heating this initially, you want to go slightly cooler, 40, 45 degrees. Sorry, I've got chocolate thumbs. Chocolate thumbs. Good. Okay. Is that any better? Oh, good. Yay, fabulous. Fabulous. All right, so that's the technical part. So from here, we're going to show you how to do moulding, how to use that for moulding. So I don't know, front row, can you see that? It's already starting to turn. Starting to get a little bit dull on the edges. It's good, and it's hot in here. What temperature is it? Oh, where's the temperature? Oh yeah, it's really hot in here. I'm sure it's hotter than 22 degrees, to be honest. Right. Okay. You good? If you stand there long enough, I'm going to cover you in chocolate. Don't stand there. All right, so I brought in all my toys from home. I like working with chocolate. I have a whole garage full, as Miss Gray can testify. You didn't get the grand tour of the garage, but she knows how much junk I've got at home. When you're working with chocolate, if it's tempered, it's a magical ingredient. So I can apply this to anything which is non-porous, okay? And it will contract. As it sets, it first becomes dull. So you can see, I don't know if you can see that. Anybody want to look at it? It's dull, okay? Initially it starts to get dull, then it will start to get touch dry. So at the moment, this is touch dry, okay? I can touch it, it's not sticking to my fingers, okay? And at that stage, I can do lots of different things with it. So I can cut it, I can twist it, I can shape it, no problem at all. As it carries on the curve of crystallization, it's going to become more solid, more rigid, and eventually it will start to contract from whatever it is you put it on. So chocolate works really well against metals. If I wanted to make a teaspoon out of chocolate, I could do, no problem at all. I could use a ladle, make a little dainty cup for someone. I could use china if I wanted to. I could make a cup, why not? Or I could at least make a saucer to go with my ladle cup. Most professionals will use these kind of molds. So this bad boy, this one here and this one, these are polycarbonate molds. They're rigid, hard plastic, and they're designed for lifetime use. Okay, they are expensive, they're not cheap, but if you're doing chocolate regularly, it pays off for sure. The most important thing is not to scratch the surface because that gets really badly damaged. So the egg I've got here, at the front, the red one, the surface, I used a spray paint, not a spray paint, an edible spray paint. I used cocoa butter. Okay, so we talked about cocoa butter being in here. I used a coloured cocoa butter to spray to give us that lovely, lovely sheen. Okay, so I applied that first, I let it set, then I coated my chocolate on top, and then I let everything contract together. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. At the back of this, if you turn it around, eventually, I've used exactly the same cocoa butter spray, and I've sprayed it once it came out the mould. So I've got a velvet spray. There's also a cheat product that you can buy, which is this stuff, which I promise I didn't use it, but I could have done. And this is our red velvet spray. And this is a cocoa butter spray with a propellant inside. It does what it says on the tin. Sometimes you have to make sure it's warm, which I don't really like using compressed cans anywhere warm. But if it's too cold in the room, it won't spray, and you just need to warm it up a little bit with your hands. Don't put it in the oven. That's really not smart. Do not put it in the microwave. That's not smart either. Just warm it with your hands, or at most a hairdryer just to warm it up. But when it comes out, it sprays over the surface and it gives you the velvet effect. You can get the same. I'm going to show you how to do it the other way, the proper way. It's not proper. This is a cheap product, but it works. So I'm quite happy whichever way it works. The other mold I've got there is that one. So this is a poor man's alternative to that. So this is our thermoform egg mold. Okay, it's rigid, but it's not infallible. This is designed to have about 3 or 4 uses, and then it warps like that. Okay, it doesn't like heat, but it does come out. So this one here was done in that mold, just to show you can use it, and it works. Okay, and then I've got my even poorer man's alternative, which is this one. Okay, so this is my little Easter egg mold that I bought from, I won't tell you where I bought it from, otherwise you'll all go and get them. Okay, but it works. It's high grade plastic. Okay, it's been polished. Okay, I use a little bit of clear alcohol to polish it. Okay, and then I can use it. And I've actually made a few of these this afternoon to show you, but I'll have a little go with that as well. So all of these work. The only thing it doesn't like is anything that's porous. So, you know, if I put this on cloth, for example, I can use it for sure. But when I take the cloth away, it's not going to be shiny. It's going to be very dull. Okay, so I lose that beauty that the egg has. You can also use things like this. So this is it's actually for cake decorating. I use a lot of cake decorating stuff for chocolate. You can't see it very well, but it's a wood grain. It's a wood grain mat. And this is This is our flexible silicone. It's food grade. It works. It's got a little knot in the middle of it. It's really hard to see from a distance. I can just about see it here, to be honest. But it will give you, that will transfer that design onto your chocolate. So it's a very adaptable medium. So before my chocolate sets, I'm going to get on with something. It's not working. That way. I'm going to make some little eggs. So the bigger eggs like this, if you're going to use those, they take quite a while to set. So a couple of hours at least. So it fully contracts from the mold. So when you turn it out, it's nice and clean, nice and sharp. Little ones take about half an hour. They're all good. Just show you the little dark ones I had earlier. If you can find them. There we are. So this is our tempered chocolate. That's for my little weenie egg, that one. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it comes out. So I'm going to have a go at doing some of those. I'm going to do some real simple preparation for this first. So if you don't have clear alcohol, you can certainly use steam. Steam works really well. I'm going to use cotton wool, which I love cotton wool. It gets rid of all those horrible fingerprints. We'll do a couple of this size. Do a couple of little ones as well. Okay. Now, when I'm working my chocolate, I need to keep this in temper. So I want to make sure the temperature doesn't drop too much. So we're still at 29 in the center. The outside of the ring is getting a little bit cold, but it's all right, it's working. Right, so what I'm going to do is I've got my water bath on, and I'm going to steam these. And when I steam them, I'm going to polish them with my cotton wool. I do one steam just because I've used these before. So the first steam just gets rid of any fingerprints. I'm putting fingers in now, okay, or dirt, chocolate. The second is to polish it up and make it nice and glossy and shiny, so it contracts really well. There you are. Where you've gone? Back over here. Okay, which one have I put on? Good. So just hold it over. It's warm. Polish that out. So the most important thing is to make sure this is nicely polished. So it's going to give us a nice sheen. Yep. 2 of those. And I'm going to do a little spray with the cocoa butter so you can see how that looks. Now, most confectioners will have a compressor unit with an aerograph. I have one at home, but it's very loud and it's very noisy, and it's quite cumbersome because they're generally pretty big. I've got I've got a domestic version of that, which I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm going to use compressed air, which works really well. Okay, and while I've got my bain-marie hot, I'm just going to pop this on for a sec, just to raise the temperature a touch. It's dropped to 29, so I want to go back up to 30. So the most important thing, chocolate, is you need to maintain it. You can't turn your back on it. You need to keep an eye on it. When I'm working at home, I tend to have, I've got a heat pad for my shoulders, and I wrap my bowl around that. It works. Just plug it in, leave it, keep it warm. Just to keep a little, my house is very cold. It's an old house, it's very cold. Right, I'm going to use a nice clean brush. I've got my ladle when I need it. I'm going to use 2 more actually. Clean, dry cotton pads. Just remove any final bits of moisture. And I want to make sure these molds are ambient temperature. Okay, so not too cold. You don't want them from the fridge. So the mold is about sort of 25, no, it's about 27 actually, which is what I'm looking for. That'll be ready when I come back. Now I'm going to get my spray. Okay. So I've got my little aerograph. Got my lovely cocoa butter. I'm just going to cool this slightly because I had it in the, we use a dehydrator just to keep it warm here. I could have put it in the microwave, but it's important that when you use the cocoa butter, you drop the temperature. I've got a feeling this is too hot. So we're applying the process, same thing. It's like tempering. So we're at 40, so I'm going to put this in and cool it. Same as when we did our temper. Spatula. Oops. There you. And this is cocoa butter, okay? So the cocoa butter is sold separately as a separate ingredient. We've got a couple here that we use. So this is one, it's our most common one, okay? So this is, there's a company called souschef.com. You can sell these, you can buy these from. Calibo sell them direct. Most chocolate houses will sell them. My cake decorating store sells them now as well. So there's lots of places you can buy them from. They set very hard. Cocoa butter is the hardest fat at room temperature. So you have to melt it. All right. So you can melt it in a water bath, as we've done there, or in a microwave, works just fine. Generally, it has quite a high melting point. So it's going to hit 50 before it's liquid. You need to cool it and then just temper it slightly so it's in the same crystalline form as our chocolate. So I'm just cooling this down. I don't want to go too mad because there's not much there, to be honest. I might just use a bit of cold water to speed it up. Oops. It's such a, I've got only enough for one canister, so I really don't want to over chill it. And you can make your own. I mean, this is a pre-made liquid, which is great. But if you don't have it, you can buy cocoa butter separately and add colouring to it. Now, the thing about chocolate, as we said earlier, it doesn't like water. So we need to be careful not to get water contact. So water-based colours would not be good for this. You'd be looking at a liposoluble colour. Okay. So again, I'm going to go down to 27. I'm struggling to read it, actually. It's still at 28, okay. I promised myself I was going to put gloves on before I handled red colour today, but it didn't work. Okay, still at 30. We're going down. It's really hard to know if it's actually reading the cocoa butter or the bowl. I think it's reading the cocoa butter. Hopefully. Let's just go a little bit colder. Yeah, unfortunately, this part of the demo, you have to do it there and then. There's no cheat on this bit. You've got to get your temper right on both the chocolate and the colour. It's 27, 26. Okay, we're on 26. That'll do for me. Okay. And then we're going to set this up. So I've got my little, this is a compressed air adapter, and I've got my aerograph here. It's warm, shouldn't be hot, but warm, definitely. Make sure that's on. I'm going to use my art propellant, which is this one. Make sure before you put this on that the little screw is up, otherwise you'll get a snake dancing in your for the tube. It goes crazy once the gas hits it. Okay, that's on. Let's twist that all the way down. There we go. So We've definitely got colour coming out, which is great. I'm going to put a bit more paper down just because I don't want to get dirty. The girls that were helping me today put bin bags on. It's like, I'm really hoping you're not going to get that messy. So, just going to, actually, you know what? I'm going to put gloves on. At least one glove. So I know what's going to happen. Okay, and then I'm going to hold it up. Okay, so we've got our little design. You could quite easily put tape, like little frisket tape inside to give you designs in here. If you didn't want to use the aerograph, you could use a brush to apply this. That would work the same. Or, as we said, you could wait until you've made the egg and then put the chocolate on it. What do I do with that little egg? There it is. So, for example, there's our shiny. So I can apply this afterwards. It's probably not cold enough to give me a nice finish. And the colder the egg is, the more almost kind of speckled it looks. So at the moment, the egg's quite hot. It's been in here. Everything's hot in here. I'm going to pop that in the fridge. We'll come back to it later. Have another go. Oop. Who's moved my tray? There it is. All right. So that's our use of aerograph. I'm going to pop that over the back. Keep it warm until later. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And then the ones that we're not applying colour to, you'll see on the front desk, front bench there, we've done some little artisan Easter eggs which have different things in them. So we've done some inclusion mouldings. They have things like nuts added to them. So you put your nut or whatever in the bottom here and then you brush around it. Others have little dry meringue pieces, which look quite cute. It's just things to make it a little bit more interesting. If you're doing any of those, it's important to do the first coat with a brush. So this is my chocolate brush. I don't use it for anything else. Okay, and we want to make sure, a nice brush out. We can see now that that chocolate is fully set. It's nice and crunchy. So I'm happy with that it's tempered. Happy that it's still tempered, actually. Just going to pop these in the fridge. Get another coat on them. That's it. So the beauty of doing it with a brush is that you can actually see if you've missed any bits. So if you turn it over, you can see that you've got an intact shell, or if there's any bits that look a bit thin when you hold it up to the light. I normally do one coat and then I'll mould it. So I'll put it in with the ladle so it's a bit thicker. But we want to let that set first. So I'm going to leave that for a minute. Not quite there yet. And in blue, well, we've got a few minutes before we come back to that. So while we're waiting, I'll show you something we made earlier. So this is what we talked about when we say the inclusion moulding. Okay, so if you look at the back, we've made a little disc. So the disc looks like this. So this is tempered chocolate, just in a ring. While it's setting, we push into it lots of different flavoured fruits. So fruits, nuts, candy if you want candy. And then once that's set, we're going to just balance that in the mould while we do that brush coat. So it gives you like an inclusion. So when I turn this out, this is the bit where it goes horribly wrong, right? It's not that hot in here, it'll be fine. No, it will. Out you come. There it is. There we go. There's your inclusion, okay? You see that? So it's something different. It's a little bit interesting. You can do whatever you want. My son has a very particular favourite sweet, and he wants those in it every time. Not that he gets it, but he wants it. But yeah, so you can make it personal, which is that's part of the fun of working with chocolate. I love it. This one here, similar. We've done different fruits in that one. We've got red fruits, some freeze-dried raspberries. We've got white chocolate droplets. All kinds of bits and pieces can go in as long as it's edible. You can see now that my little shell is setting. All right, so I'm going to mould these. So It's the same technique if you're using small or large. I'm going to use a little dinky one. I need to have my palette. So I'm just going to fill. Give it a little tap. That just releases any air pockets. And then we give it an inversion. Tap out the excess. Obviously, if you're buying large manufactured Easter eggs, this is done by machine. Okay? Hate to break it to you. There's not some little Oompa Loompa sitting there doing it, but even medium-sized manufacturers now have machinery to help with this part because it's quite messy and time-consuming. But I like it. Just air out. Tap it through. And then I just let that rest upright for a minute or two, and then I'm going to invert it so that any excess will drip away. Right, that one can sit there. Let's have a look at those coloured. They must be ready by now. So the ones you see at there's a couple there, the lighter ones, they have the spray and then they will have a white backing on it because against dark, red doesn't show up very well. So we're not going to do the white backing because it's a repeat of this, but just so you know why it looks different. This will give me a nice red glow on my chocolate, which is quite interesting. Again, I'm going to brush first. Try not to move the cocoa butter. Hopefully it's set enough, it won't move. Stay there. Yeah, there we are. Just going to pop that down. Again, same thing. Once we're happy with the set, it starts to set off, then we're going to do a second coat. And the only reason we're doing the second coat is to get an egg that's thick enough that we can turn it out without it cracking. We have started doing some little inclusion eggs, which we've been experimenting with. Obviously, the Dubai bar, which is everywhere at the moment. We had a little fun doing that, and we sent a few of those to various people for their opinions. They are interesting. It's interesting to try to make a Dubai bar in that shape. We do sell Dubai bars downstairs, and it's much easier when they're flat. Okay, the one thing we found is that it doesn't want to stick to the sides. So it's a real pain. And you can fix it just by using a spoon, but it's a different technique, and it does throw you a little bit because it's like, why would you do that? Otherwise, it will fall to the bottom. Okay, you can see already my chocolate is starting to set. It's starting to become dull. So I'm going to go in and do my flood coat. Try not to make too much mess. Swizzle that around. There we go. That's it. Excess out. Just take off the excess. Just make sure my edges are clear. So we have a phrase, back to plastic. So when we scrape, we go back to plastic because that tells me that there's nothing that's going to impede the chocolate contracting from those edges, because the contraction is what helps you get it out of the mold. If it doesn't contract, it's not coming out. So it's in your best interest to make sure it comes off. Yeah. Okay. Right. So look at these ones. Okay, so these now have started to settle, so I'm going to invert them. That means anything extra will drip forward. Give those a minute or two, and then we'll do that as well. So all the ones I've got in the fridge. No, we're in there. Get you back out again. Let's do another one of those. Right, at this stage, I'm going to rewarm my chocolate. Don't need my ladle anymore, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, and what I say normally is when you see the collar starting to become dull, that's when you need to reheat it. Because if it goes any further, you're going to have a problem. Marie back on. Take that away. All right, so we've done the nuts and bolts of how we make an Easter egg. Anybody got any questions about what we've done so far? No? You sure? All right, I might put a bit on there actually. I haven't done that in chocolate for a while. Let's see what happens. I'll maybe warm it a little bit first. Okay. Oh, sorry. I looked away for a second.
Completely new to confectionery, and I was just thinking naively that these might be filled. So I was a little disappointed that you were pouring all the chocolate out. Is there a version of this that ends up being filled with something?
What, you mean the egg filled?
Yeah.
Or yeah, I mean you can certainly fill it. So once we get to that stage, when it's done and it's set, you can put a ganache inside or a caramel, as long as it's cool. Whatever goes inside needs to be cool enough that it won't melt the chocolate. But yes, you can certainly put things inside it at this stage. So the same technique would be applied if you wanted to make bonbons and you had a bonbon mold. You would do the same thing to individual cavities, and then once they're set, then you fill them with your ganaches and seal them. You seal the top of them with more chocolate. But yeah, certainly it works. It's good. The key is the tempering, as always, and knowing how to handle and when to reheat. And every time you reheat, you just check. Yep, 31. We're all good. So believe me, in class, the students have a little bit more of a struggle getting to the right temperatures. It's not a one-time, oh, that's it, we're at 31, we're good. It's like, 28 and a half, 29, 15, oh, that's wrong. But we get there in the end, don't we? Do we not get there in the end? Yes, we do. Right, okay, so let's have a little look. I'm going to have a go at this, actually. I quite like looking at that. Let's see what happens. So I have no idea what I'm going to use this part for, but we'll have a try anyway. Where's the eye of the wood? That's the only bit I liked on here. Okay, and then if you wanted to make it flat, you can use your palette knife, or a simpler way of doing it is just push it out whichever direction you want it to be. And then we'll just let that set. Just making sure there's no air pockets underneath. Let that set for a minute. Okay, let's go back to our little aerograph here. Just check these. Yep. They're already starting to cloud, which is good. So as soon as they become dull, I'm just going to run my palette round just to make sure they're releasing from the edges. But they look fine, look all right. Let's have another go with that aerograph. Yeah, it's not really cold enough. It needs, if you freeze this, it comes up really well. So you can really see the pink, but obviously it's a bit warm in here and it's not had long in the fridge. We'll leave it in there and maybe have another go in a minute. All right, so I've got my tempered chocolate. I'm going to use that in a mo. I'm going to use that for piping next. Just going to get rid of the red. Any more questions from anybody while we're doing a bit of cleanup? Very quiet. Has anybody tried tempering at home? Go on. In the hot water? So I want to avoid contact, metal on metal contact. So you could use a J cloth, would work. You could use a piece of foil would work as well, but it's kind of metal as well. It's just, you really don't want that bottom of the pan to get too warm. And we were on induction, and the induction heats really fast underneath. So just making sure there's a little bit of a lift is beneficial, especially sometimes because the students a little forgetful with their bain-maries. So we'll know when their bain-marie runs dry because we can smell burning paper. It's like, somebody's bain-marie. Right, okay, so get rid of the red. That's good. So as we said, don't want any water. Should we get rid of that? Chocolate does not like it at all. Yep. Go on. No, go for it. Do you like chocolate sauce? You can make ganache with it. You can make it because ganache will always have water. So if anyone doesn't know, ganache is a mixture of chocolate with liquid. Okay, whatever liquid you put in will always have a water content. So you can calculate how much extra water to put in and save it, or how much cream to put in to save it. The trouble is, once it's got water in, when you start to temper and use it in shell molding, you'll always see the water streaks. It's not going to ever disguise unless you spray it. That's an option. You can spray it. It really depends on the percentage, I guess, of how much. So we're going to move on. We have our eggs that we made earlier. This is the egg from the book. Well, not really. My interpretation of the egg from the book. So we have our nougat on the back here. So as we said earlier, the nougat is our sugar base. Okay, so nougat, for those who don't know, this is not a traditional nougat. This is a seed nougat. So generally, nougat is made with flaked almonds or flaked hazelnuts, or even nibbed almonds. The nuts are toasted. You cook your sugar with a little bit of usually glucose syrup in there to prevent crystallization, and water, and you cook it to caramel. So we normally say golden honey color, and then you put your toasted nuts through it, and then you pour it onto your counter and you roll. Okay, now it's one of those things, you need quite a lot of upper body strength because it's hard and it sets really quickly. You do need to put a lot of pressure on it, and you need to be fast. Once you've rolled it and it's still flexible, you're going to use that. And I used it in the same mold, actually. I used that. Where did my mold go? Did that one disappear to? Oh. That's weird. I thought I had that mold out. I used one like that, but plain. I've sworn I left that mold out earlier. So I used the egg mold, polycarbonate, so nice and rigid. Pushed this in while it was hot. Used cloths and gloves because it is hot, and then used scissors to cut it off. You need to let it go cold, and it takes about 4 hours to cool down properly. Okay, so it's not something we could have done and put in. It is hollow. It's a hollow egg, okay, and it's got a lovely smooth-ish surface. I say ish because I've just spotted a wrinkle. We won't talk about that. I've used the same mold, so it matches, to produce my egg. Okay, and I didn't want to do just boring old black or dark, so I did an Easter themed egg. Okay, so bear with me, it's Easter here somewhere. Okay, so we're starting with our greens. I used the airbrush as we've just done. So what I did first was I applied my dark green, and I did a dark green base, and then when that's set, then I used another dark green base, and I used brush strokes just to give us a little bit of nuance, if you like. And then finally I did a white, and then inside this is milk chocolate. Okay, so I wanted to play with colours because, you know, it's Easter and it's chocolate and Easter eggs, etc. So we needed to do something along those lines. So I also did the little plinth, dark chocolate plinth, and then I just prettied this up, made it look neat with a bit of royal icing, which I'm going to do a bit more of now. So for those of you who don't know, royal icing is a mixture of egg whites with icing sugar. It doesn't have to be egg white, actually. You could make royal icing with just plain old water if you wanted to, but we use egg white because it works. And a little bit of lemon juice just to, I think I've made, so those are the scissors I used to cut the nougatine, and now they're very blunt. So they're not even cutting plastic. So I need a new pair of scissors. Note to self. Don't forget to remind me. Okay, you can use a piping nozzle if you choose. I don't normally. In fact, you know what? I'm not going to use a piping nozzle. We'll go with that. Oh, maybe I will. Yeah, let's use a piping nozzle. Let's use a star tip. There we go. That'll do it. The beauty of using these disposable bags is that you don't need to have a coupler. You can just put this straight in. It's always going to fit unless you cut too much off, which wouldn't be the first time I've said that and then cut too much off. Hello. With the nougat, it's about probably about 4 cm, so it's quite substantial because it's got to hold up. So it's not super thin. And if you were going to eat this, I'd probably suggest you share it with a lot of people. In fact, I have some here. Thicker, which is that one. It's a bit more chunky. You can see the scissor marks. So if anybody wants to have a look at that, it's there. It's got seeds in it. It's got sugar in it. You're aware of allergens? Poppy seeds, sesame seeds. Okay. So that looks a very small bag. Anyway, hopefully it'll be enough. Right, so we're going to start piping. You guys see? I like to start at the top. It's always a good place. Just doing little shells. Normally I'd work with this a bit higher. So don't hurt me back. Oh, I'm just going to have to shut my eyes and hope I get in the right place. Come here. And the royal icing, when it's piped, it doesn't take long to set. It only takes probably half an hour before it's hard. Now, normally on an Easter egg, you'd use chocolate. You know, if you've got something like this, you'd pipe chocolate just to hide the seam. You're never going to get a perfect seam because that's the part that breaks. Sometimes you get a little bit of a crack forming. Just going to go back to these real quick. So these now are solid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those in the fridge. Take that out because you don't need to go in the fridge. So normally I prefer to decorate Easter eggs laying down, not me, them, just because gravity is not helpful, especially not when you've got a piping bag in your hand. Come on, there you go. Right, so that looks pretty. Look. Hide all the mistakes, that's what I like. Not that there are mistakes, by the way, just in case you were wondering. Okay, so again, in the book, we have a recipe for pastillage. So I don't normally use pastillage for making flowers because it's quite brittle and it's not very elastic. But I thought I'd have a go at making daffodils because it's Easter, and why not? So I made some little daffodils. So I've got little daffs as part of the decoration. Okay, and I'm going to use those on there. I'm going to add a few of those using my royal icing to stick. And then I've got a couple of little butterflies. Wherever they've flown off to. Come here. There you are. Used quite often. And it's on this one. If you look at this one here, and this is our cake lace. Okay, and it is a product you buy. It's a prefabricated gel. This is probably one of the biggest manufacturers of cake lace. I'll cover that. She doesn't make a lot out of it. It's one of those things. It looks disgusting. It looks like I don't know what that looks like, but it doesn't look very appetizing. It is fully edible. It doesn't hurt you. There's nothing in there that's bad for you, but I wouldn't eat too much of it. But it just gives you a whole different nuance to your product. So this one here is a cake lace mat that I've used. So I've got a whole host of these. Oh, that one's not there. It's over here. No, it's not. It's gone. All right. I don't know where it's gone. It's around here somewhere. So this is our border. I've got little butterflies. So we've got a few little butterflies. We've done butterflies. And we've got feathers. And it comes in lots of different, fun colours. So we've got you know, like a bronzy, we've got gold, we've got luster, pearl, white, all different colours. So we're going to use a few of those on here as well. In the book, the chefs in the book have used little cutouts like this. Can't get hold of it, can't pick it up. Little cutouts like this, so that's using a little cake decorating cutter. They've also got flat butterflies, which are using pastillage, that works. But I thought these are a little bit more delicate, because I like delicate. You wouldn't know it to look at me, but I do like delicate. Right, so I'm turning this away from you, because I need to see what's happening. A little bit of royal icing. And generally, I would prefer to use chocolate, but hey-ho. Just a couple of those. These are wild daffodils, if in case you didn't recognise them. I have these growing in my garden. And again, we're just going to go, we don't want it to be too regular. Do I like you? No. Let's go for the other one. You're nicer. I'll have you. That one there. So I've just gone for 3. So most pastry chefs prefer to have odd numbers. So I've got my 3, okay? It's an aesthetic thing. There's no real rhyme or reason, to be honest. It's just, it looks better. And I'm going to put a little butterfly on top. If I've got a little butterfly, it'll do. Maybe one little butterfly on top. Just a tad royal icing. I don't need much. Looks a little bit like a dragonfly, bless him. Okay, so that's that one finished off. Okay. And then, oh, go on, go for it. You can clap if you want to, it's okay. You honestly don't have to sit on your hands, it's fine. All right, so these are going to need about 20 minutes to turn out. What else have I got to do? Oh, I don't know, I've got loads of things. So I'll just show you how I set on the base if you want to see that. Okay, so I've got my little nougatine base. So these are great. I like the colours, and I think the colour works really well with chocolate. You know, even milk chocolate works really well. I've got another egg mould here. So this is one of our cheaper egg molds. So if I'm going to stick this is fully assembled. As I said, I like to have it ready, flat on the table. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to take my palette knife. I'm going to force crystallise some of my chocolate. So as we said, that chocolate in the fridge is crystallising, which means it's starting to thicken and contract. I can make that happen when I want it to by taking a little bit of chocolate on my spatula and just working it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that forced crystallized chocolate to set. So one of the worst things when you're doing a creation is putting it up and then having to stand there and pray it doesn't fall over. Okay, so there's a couple of things you can use. One is a freeze spray, which is that one, which is PCB Creations, and it literally it will freeze on contact. The problem is if you're using tempered chocolate, it will make your chocolate look different. It sets and it's great, but it does look a little bit tacky, has a few streaks in it. So I'll just take a little bit of this, and I don't need to use that because this will set on its own. There we go. All right, so this is now starting to get tacky, which is that stage where it gets dull in the mold. Okay, so while it's still flexible, we'll take it into a little bowl, lift it up onto our base, and then we pick up nope, one more. Stay. There we go. Quick, right? I don't like messing about. So that saves me from putting fingerprints on my products. Usually I would say hold it where you're not going to see, but basically it's everywhere, it's on show. So you want to keep your hands away from it as much as possible, because your hands, even if you're wearing gloves, it's the warmth of the hand that will dull the chocolate. So small touches and very quick attachment. And then just check the joint. It's not too bad. Just neaten that up a little bit. Okay. That's that one. In fact, on that one, I've got a few little other pieces I can use. So these are made also using tempered chocolate. So I don't know if you can see these. Can you see that, everybody? So these are all tempered chocolate. It's using exactly the same method. So we have some little cutouts. Another one with a cutout, straight edges. This one is quite cute. It's a tendril. Okay, so we use a product called acetate. It's on a roll, and we coat it with chocolate and then use a comb scraper with a flat edge, and it gives you really even pieces. And then as soon as it gets that dull, you twist it and then let it set fully. Then you can peel it off, and you have these very strong tendrils that will stand on their own. You can see I'm holding this. It's not melting. That's because it's tempered, and I'm hot. I'm hot. Really hot. You know, so my hands are warm. How hot am I? Let me see. Hang on a second. That can't be right. I'd be dead. All right. It says I'm not hot, but I feel hot. It's ladies of a certain age. I'm sorry. So I'm just turning this back to me so I can see what I'm doing. Because if I did it facing you, I wouldn't have a clue what was going on here. Just going to add a little bit of chocolate. I have one of those. Oh, not that one. That was the trial one. We'll try this one instead. So I've just got a little bit of chocolate on the side of the tray that I'm working. Sometimes it's just about getting the balance. So I'm deliberately using the stuff around the edge of the bowl because it's a little bit closer to that tacky feeling I want. Like that. Stay. So these are all done with tempered chocolate, varying techniques that we use pretty much every day in our preparation. And then we can just add a couple of little highlights. More problems with the icing sticking than the chocolate stay. One more. Trouble is, it's hard to know when to stop. You just keep want to go, keep going. Put something else on, go on, and then it'll all fall over. Okay. Let's see where we are with everything else. So this hasn't been in the fridge. If it's in the fridge, it'll be nice and shiny, but we're not going to wait for that. We'll just turn it out anyway. There's our wood. We have a nice little wood grain. If you leave it in the fridge, it'll become nice and shiny, but it's just a nice little texture. That's a nice interest piece. Let's just see how we're getting on with these. Yeah, first one's out. So it needed a little bit longer in the fridge, but obviously time is getting on. We've got everything. You ready? Not yet. That one's not ready. These ones should be. So done first. So you can see I'm just pulling up from one side. Don't really have to do anything. I just get hold of it. Just break the suction. There we go. Put that on there. This one's straight. Oop, ah. And it stayed in the mould. Come on, where are you? Oh, you're a good egg, you are. Not really, it's shattered. That's all right. Oh, that was well tempered. See, you didn't know I could juggle as well, did you? And then this one, as I said, just need a little bit longer in the fridge, that one, but it's out. Anything else? How's that? I could keep going. I will keep going if you don't stop me. Welcome. Welcome. Do you want to wrap up? We have samples, by the way. We do. He's just gone to get them. We have samples from the book. Okay, so just so you know, there are allergens inside. So I need to find my allergen sheet. Hang on a second. It's around here somewhere. Hi. Join them. I can show you. If by magic somebody asked a question. Fabulous. So the easiest way to join them is just to soften them slightly. And you can either use extra tempered chocolate or you can just use the chocolate that's melted from them. 1 second, let me find a bowl. So we just had a question about what you're eating, which I don't actually know what you're eating. I do know. I've just lost my little cheat sheet. I had an allergen list here somewhere, but I don't know where that's gone. Okay, so on your, I didn't get one. How come I didn't get one? No, it's okay. Can I have one so I know what to tell them? Oh, good. There we go. All right, so we have the little pink thing is the raspberry marshmallow. Okay, one recipe makes about 80 pieces, that size. We have the small mandarin jelly, which is in the book. We have the little chocolate one is the cremino, which is pistachio, very yummy. Better to keep in the fridge before serving and then just let it come to temperature when you want to eat it. And then finally, we have our little chocolate nougat with nuts. So if anybody has specific allergens, please, we have nuts. Okay, so 2 of them have nuts in them. Okay, which stay away from if you're not allowed. So somebody asked me a question about how to join them. We can cover that. All right, so what I tend to do if I'm joining these is I take my two halves. I demold one half and leave the other half in the shell mold. I need to make sure it's in the right mold. Oh, come on. There you go. That's it. In the right mold. There we go. That's the right mold. Okay, and then I've got a warm tray. Okay, you can use a dry pan. That works. I'm just going to melt this down very quickly. It's too hot. Wipe it, and then on top. Go back into position. Stay where you are. Okay, the other option is you pipe. You can pipe a little bit around it. Make sure that's stuck. Don't want to stick. Okay, that doesn't want to happen that way. Let's go the other way. It's probably because my tray was too hot. Let's go the old-fashioned route. Do both of them. And again, if I were going to use this, I would have gloves, making sure that I'm not touching where I shouldn't be. So we don't want it to sweat too much. Use a little. I mean, it sets pretty quickly. A few minutes in the fridge is ideal, just to give that another set point. The other one's off now. These are red. I mean, as I said, ideally I would leave these longer in the fridge. The colder they are, the easier they are to handle, the less fingerprints you have on them. These are straight out the fridge, so. Yep. And that one's in there. Okay. Any questions? Yep.
Circling back to the brush coat, colored cocoa or cocoa butter. I know we have to bring it down to 27%, but what happens if you don't? Is it aesthetic?
No, if you've ever used cocoa butter on the inside of a mold and then lined it with chocolate and it doesn't stick, that's why. Because you have to get a similar crystalline texture in the cocoa butter. So sometimes they call it cocoa butter silk. Sometimes they will call it tempering the cocoa butter, but it is the same process. You have to get it so hot to melt it. You have to bring the crystals back in line before you apply it. The other thing with it is that, you know, for example, if we're working in a room where it's very cold, you need to be careful of the mold temperature. I check my mold temperature. So I'm looking at about 21, 22 degrees on my mold when I've applied my cocoa butter spray. So it's not chilled, it's ambient. Then when the chocolate goes inside, it needs to be at least 28 when it goes in. Any less than that, and there's not enough heat to adhere the two surfaces together, and it will separate. So you'll end up turning out your egg, and the cocoa butter will stay behind. Even if it's tempered, it will do that. So it's quite a tricky process, but once you know the temperatures, it works like a dream. It's great. 27, yeah. Yeah, temper it, high and then low, and then go. The other thing, there are a lot of other things to calculate. So things like temperature of your equipment, the spray gun, temperature of the surface air. So all of those things need to be figured in, but that's a kind of ballpark of where you're aiming at. Good luck. Hope you try it.
And then also, concerning the nougat that's on the back, you said it was thicker to support.
Yeah.
Is that the same case for, say, the smaller chocolate eggs in the front? One side thicker than...
No, I mean, to be fair, they're inclusion molded, so they're thicker anyway. So you would sell that as a luxury egg with fillings, and it's got a bit of weight to it. If you look at this one, it's much thinner than that. So it's really, depending on what you want to include, you need to figure out how it's going to be held in position. So if I'd put all of that, there's quite a lot there. If I'd have put all of that in the mold and then gone for a really thin shell coat, the weight of that would have cracked the eggshell. So you have to go thicker just to compensate for the weight of what's been included and held within it. Okay. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the samples. Please feel free to come and ask questions, take pictures, whatever you want to do next. I'm here. Please. Thank you. Oh, yes, we have.
To win the egg.
Yep. How generous do you feel? Yeah. You do too if you want to. Uh-oh. Well then, you're going to do another one? Okay, all right. I've got chocolate on my hat now.